Hey everyone, I'm really excited about starting Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon with you this week. What you're looking at here is a picture of part of my own collection of her novels. You can see Song of Solomon on the far right hand side here and how taped together it is because I read it so many times that it fell apart. Um, so, Song of Solomon, as I touched on in our weekly overview, is a novel that really probably changed my life. I'm not sure I'd be an English professor if it weren't for reading this novel in my first year of college. So I'm excited to start reading it again with you. So before we talk about Song of Solomon specifically, I want to talk a little bit about how amazing Toni Morrison is. She has won pretty much every prestigious literary award a novelist could win, starting most significantly with the Nobel Prize in Literature. She was the first Black woman and the first African American to win this award. So it was quite an achievement. Barack Obama anointed her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She won the Pulitzer Prize, the National Book Critics Circle Award, the Medal of Distinguished Contribution to American Letters, and an American Book Award. So this is quite a resume. So she is widely admired as a writer of fiction. But even before she became a fiction writer, she didn't start writing novels until she was in her 30s. She was an editor for a major publishing house, and in her role as editor, she focused on publishing books by Black writers and especially by Black women writers. Here, the critic Hilton Als says, like Morrison's writing, her editing had a very particular goal: to offer readers stories about Blacks, women, and other marginalized characters which hadn't been told before. I think this is a good way to look at her novels too. Stories that hadn't been told before. Here, the writer Rachel Kadziganza observes that Morrison makes Black life, regular quotidian Black life, the kind that doesn't sell out concert halls or sports stadiums, complex, fantastic, and heroic, despite its devaluation. So, in other words, while the rest of the world might not be thinking much about Black life, uh, Toni Morrison is going to show how beautiful and amazing and complex regular life of regular Black people can be. I think that's a good way to look at Song of Solomon, too. Here's a quotation by Toni Morrison herself that I like. What interested me was the African American experience throughout whichever time I spoke of. It was always about African American culture and people, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But that was, for me, the universe. So let's shift our attention now specifically to Song of Solomon and the reviews that it got when it first came out in 1977. Time magazine said, Song of Solomon is an exuberant expansion of her themes and literary techniques. Using legend and the tradition of Black oral history, she traces a family from Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement, from slavery in the South to farming in Pennsylvania to middle-class respectability in a Midwestern town. So what I really like about this quotation that I want you to think about is this mention of legend and traditional Black oral history like folktale that come to play and that are interwoven inside of this complex novel. Here's a quotation from a review in Oprah.com. This is a novel in which mystery unfolds on mystery, revelation on revelation, in which our vision of what we have seen turns, changes, and takes shape again, transformed. So, in other words, things in the novel may not always be what we first think they are. It is a novel expressing with passion, tenderness, and a magnificence of language the mysterious primal essence of family bond and conflict, the feelings and experience of all people wanting and striving to be alive. So let's talk about what to expect as you're reading. As alluded to before, this is a family saga. There's drama, there's secrets, there's murder, there's greed, there's all kinds of great stuff. The central characters include Macon dead and his sister Pilot dead. They are grown and they're not really speaking to each other. So one of the things that we're going to be looking for is why they don't speak, what caused the rift between them. But our main character is Macon's son and Pilot's nephew, Milkman. Milkman dead. I want you to think about whether this is a coming of age story for Milkman. Well, I think it probably is a coming of age story. So I want you to think about how it is that Milkman grows and develops as this novel progresses. Um, in the opening scene, he's not even born yet. And by the time we get to the end of chapter 5, he's a young man. I want you to think about what kind of young man he is, what what he's got going for him, and what he still needs to work out. I want you to keep thinking about magical realism. To refresh your memory, magical realism is the presence of magical or fantastical elements in an otherwise realistic setting. Toni Morrison is known for her use of magical realism, so watch for it in this novel. If you think you see something that's magical, that looks like an element of magical realism, point it out in discussions. And then also we talked before about the postmodern structure in a lot of literature from the contemporary period. In the last, 40 or 50 years, novelists are really experimenting with the way that they tell stories. So instead of going in chronological order and ending with everything resolved and wrapped up, they might tell stories out of order. There might be flashbacks, stories within stories, some jumps in time, some alienarity, in other words. And things may not always be resolved. So watch for that. And because of that postmodern structure, sometimes this novel is going to be disorienting to read. So, for example, in the first scene, we're not going to know what's going on. You're going to be a little bit confused about what exactly is happening, and that's how it's supposed to be. But I want you to put your trust in Toni Morrison and keep trusting the novel that the answers will be revealed. Okay, so this can be disorienting sometimes, but it's really a great reading experience. For this reason, I highly recommend that you use the reading guide. You can download it and take notes right in it. I think this will really help you when you're getting to later parts of the novel to be able to look back at your notes. And of course, the reading guide is always meant every week to help you slow down and kind of look at things that are pretty important that you may have missed if you were distracted or rushing through. So take your time with this novel. So we're going to have the usual tasks for the next few weeks. As usual, you'll find everything that you need in the weekly overviews. Read slowly, read carefully, and make sure you ask questions in discussions if you have them. The usual guidelines for posting and the usual deadlines for posting will apply. We'll have those weekly quizzes. Again, if you're reading slowly, using the reading guide, and paying attention to our discussions, you should do really well on those. We will have a writing assignment coming up in a few weeks. The deadline is in the syllabus. And for this writing assignment, you'll be asked to choose either one of the novels that we're reading, either Whitehead's novel or Morrison's novel, and focus more on something specific there that you want to study. So you'll have some options, and I'll be giving you details really soon. I think that's it, other than to remind you that I'm here to help you. If you want to have a virtual discussion, I think we should plan on that tentatively too, because that can be a great way to what am I trying to say? To reveal some of the layers going on in this novel and call attention to some important details that we may have missed and learn from each other's observations. And of course, if you need help, reach out to me by email, make an appointment with me. I'm here to help you, okay? I hope you really enjoy the reading. I'm looking forward to hearing your reactions.